Hey everybody, this is Rob Smith at the Body Project in Eagan, Minnesota, and I've got a beautiful model, shall we say. Went out for lunch today, and there was a guy on the side of the road with a little cardboard sign that said "We'll work for food." So threw a shirt on him, gave him a shower, looked pretty decent. So Nick's going to demonstrate lifting on a deadlift too. So we're going to talk about the technique. So it doesn't matter if you're lifting a kettlebell or you're lifting a heavy object. We want to get under the object, so we want this nice wide base of support. But we've been talking about breathing patterns, and I want to talk about how we optimize functionality and safety, efficiency, by breathing correctly during a fitness move. And so one of the things when we're lifting a heavy object from the ground, we really want to make sure we're filling through the diaphragm. Now, the reason why we have to make sure we're filling through the diaphragm is, Nick, if you go down, what we're going to find, if Nick fills through his diaphragm, he's going to have optimal segmental stabilization at his low back or his lumbar spine. Okay, why don't you get up? No lift here. So we have to be able to fill all the way through his diaphragm in order to lift that. So Nick would inhale through his nose. He would want to laterally fill all the way through around his back. Now he's going to have optimal segmental stabilization at this lumbar spine. If he doesn't do that, traditionally what you'll see is people that are vertical breathers is now he loses that segmental stabilization. So people typically will go and grab a weight, and because they're not breathing properly, they're going to do one of two things. Why don't you go into the lifting position? When they go to lift a heavy object, they're going to hold their breath. Okay, this can create a massive increase in blood pressure. The brain says, even though the diaphragm is my primary respiratory muscle right now, what would take precedence is spinal stabilization. That's why people hold their breath. But if you're lifting a heavy object, you always want to make sure, for instance, if you were doing a deadlift, lifting an object from the ground here, you always want to fill from the diaphragm, and then let's come up through pursed lips. Okay, so now we keep all the stabilization here. If Nick is shrugging here, he creates all this stress here in his shoulders. So he fills nicely. So as he drops down, he fills, and then he comes up with the compression breath. Very nice. So when you drop down into your lifting position, you always want to fill. So you start to fill the diaphragm as you're coming down into your lifting position. Now, if Nick has optimal breath control, he's gonna stay safe. So let's just do another repetition. So it's very controlled. So he fills the diaphragm beautifully to support, stabilize the spine, comes up with compression breath. So when he uses that compression breath, he's actually integrating all four of his abdominal muscles plus his diaphragm. So he has tremendous stabilization there at the lumbar spine. All right, let's go to shoulder press. Now remember, you're breathing about 25,000 times every single day. So we really have to be mindful of how the respiratory mechanics are starting. Are we going vertical? If we're going vertical, then we really have to take the time to focus on breathing. Obviously, we originate the breath from the diaphragm, but in terms of fitness, we don't want the anterior breath here. We want what? The lateral breath. Why? Because now we can fill the diaphragm. So let's say Nick was doing a press. He would inhale through his nose and exhale. Now let's say Nick's done several repetitions. He's starting to increase his respiration. Let's go back up to the top. So let's say I was going to have him do 10 reps. If he's not breathing properly, the propensity is to either hold his breath, okay? So that's strike one. Secondly, what's going to happen is he's going to lose power, he's going to lose strength, because he's not getting enough oxygen to the cells. So what we want to do is let's say here, in the resting position, Nick, let's go up to the top. So let's say Nick was in the top resting position. He might want to breathe like this. And then let's give 2 more reps. Go ahead. So now what happens is he catches his breath, and then he can actually start to do some more presses. Let's flip around to the back once. So if Nick's in this resting position and he starts breathing like this, what's happening is all these neck and upper shoulder muscles get very fatigued. And particularly what we're seeing today is with all the people with their forward head posture, it's really stressing this neck musculature. And then you go into the gym, and what happens is people are ending up hurting their shoulder and their neck. And if you see this position right here, Nick wants to pull his rib cage down closer to his pelvis as he breathes through his diaphragm. So the big thing is, let's flip around. Show the camera your beautiful mug. So we want to make sure as respiration increases, then you start to control your breath. Because for a lot of people, as it starts to increase, the respiration starts to increase, what happens is they're going to hold their breath again, or, go ahead, they'll start to get a little squirmy with their form, right? So let's go ahead and take the band down. So the big thing is, with our breathing, we have to make sure, again, if Nick was going to do a breath to stimulate relaxation, then the belly's going to come out. Okay, now he's going to stimulate parasympathetic activity for rest and digest. But in terms of fitness, again, we've got to get back to this lateral breath. And it has everything to do with the segmental stabilization, spin around, and keeping this musculature not engaged. Remember, these are accessory respiratory muscles. So when these accessory respiratory muscles become primary respiratory muscles, these muscles become over fatigued. It leads to forward head posture. The human head weighs about 12 pounds. So for every inch he goes forward, it doubles the stress on this neck musculature. So for a lot of people, they might be as far as 2 inches forward head. We want the ear, the shoulder, the hip, the knee, and the ankle all to line up. Well, if he starts to drift like 2 inches forward, now his head literally weighs like triple, like 36 pounds. So what happens is he develops a lot of trigger points through here, tight tissue through this area, and again, it can lead to neck problems, shoulder problems, headaches, just to name a few things. But what we want to do is keep good postural positioning, and then by breathing through the diaphragm, he takes all the stress off here, offers better stabilization, no stress there. So that's the video for today in our continuation on our pyramid of optimal physical performance. Later on, I'm going to be talking about how we can integrate proper breathing techniques to optimize flexibility. And so until we see you tomorrow, be well.